I'm Jeremy Howard at the Speedway Police Department. I'm your community liaison for the Crime Watch meetings. Tonight we're going to be talking about fraud tactics and prevention. It's going to be done by Joe Harmon, Sergeant with the Speedway Police Department. Real quick before you get started is Community Shred-It Day is on October 23rd, 2021 at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's going to be at 1410 Lyndhurst at the old police station. We have a couple numbers I want to put out to you. Emergency, obviously 911. Non-emergency from a cell phone is 311. 317-246-4300 is the non-emergency number to our dispatch. And we have a crime tip number, 317-246-5300. Once again, non-emergency from a cell phone, 311. Non-emergency from a cell phone or a landline, 317-246-4300. And our crime tip line, 317-246-5300. Halloween's right around the corner. It's a chilling fact. Kids are more than twice as likely to get hit by cars and killed on Halloween than any other day of the year. What you can do to make it easier on drivers to see kids, give your child a flashlight, give him glow sticks, carry on reflective hang tags, wristbands, and tape of their costumes. Please make your kid visible, and when they step out on the road, make them look twice, cross at intersections, don't let them run across cars. Halloween's right around the corner. We need to protect our children. Now I'm going to introduce you to Sergeant Joe Harmon, and he's going to teach you about fraud tactics and prevention. Joe.
Thank you, Officer Howery. As he mentioned, I'm Sergeant Harmon, Speedway Police Department. Kind of want to start with a little bit of background on me, kind of understand why I'm up here and why they asked me to teach this presentation. So, born and raised in Speedway, graduated from Speedway High School, ended up going on to Ball State. Then after that, I did a master's degree at Trine up in Angola, Indiana. Got hired here in 2013, worked middle shift patrol for the first 5 years. And then in 2018, I moved to investigations. So when I was in investigations, I worked everything from hit and runs to homicides, but they really had me focus on financial crimes and fraud. So that's kind of what I specialized in. Got to go to a lot of cool training. I worked on a kind of a loose task force with FBI, Secret Service, postal inspectors. I got to do a lot of cool stuff, learn a lot of good things. So what I hope to do is share some of that information with you tonight and kind of put the power in your hands to kind of prevent some of these fraud issues, specifically with the scammers. So to start, I kind of want to mention the scope of this issue. Just in Speedway alone, we average about 3 to 5 cases a month, and they can range anywhere from $500 to $10,000 and above. And I would say, point out that that's 3 to 5 cases that are reported. So a lot of people, when I interview them or talk to them about these cases, they're kind of embarrassed that they got scammed. So I would say that the number of unreported cases is obviously higher than that 3 to 5. But you can also see 56 million Americans lost money in 2020. So if you are one of those people who got scammed, there's no need to feel bad. It happens to a lot of people. A lot of what we've been seeing lately are telephone scams or the robocalls that we all get. I think this week alone I've gotten 4 or 5. And I'm sure everybody watching this has gotten a ton of those. Just an estimate, there were about 45.5 billion robocalls just last year. So this is a constant problem. So tonight we're going to discuss how it starts. So we've got our scammers, we've got our intended victims. How do those two people come together? We're going to talk about some common examples of scams, things specifically that have happened here in Speedway. Unfortunately, there's a million different types of scams that they're running. Really, the only limit is human imagination as far as the scams that are out there. But we'll talk about a few that we've seen a lot. And I'm also going to go over some red flags. There are certain things that kind of go across the spectrum of all these scams that if you can start to recognize those, you'll be way ahead of the curve in recognizing for what they are. A lot of these scams will have a lot of your personal information that they'll use to try to make themselves seem more legitimate. We're going to talk about how they get that information about you and ways that you can limit what they can find out about you. And then if you are a victim of a scam, identity theft, anything like that, we're going to talk about what to do, some things that you can do moving forward to kind of minimize the damage. And then at the end, if there are any questions, we'll have time for that. So the first thing is, how does this start? Like I said, we've got our scammers, we've got our intended victims. How are these people coming together? So the three main ways we've been seeing, number one is phishing or malware, which phishing is like scam emails, spoofed websites, something like that. There's the voice version of that called Vishing, which is what these robocalls are. They've even started to do text messages. I'll show you some examples of those. And then we've had a few that came through standard mail. They're not as common, but we've had a few, so I'll at least mention those. So the first one I mentioned, phishing, is so basically it's an email you might get or a website you may go to accidentally, and they're posing as a legitimate business or maybe even a personal contact that you know through social media. And what they're doing is they're trying to get you to give them information by trusting that they are who they say they are. And that could be whether they're getting you to give them contact or like login information for accounts, or it could be where they want you to download something which is called malware, which is just harmful software that gets downloaded to your computer. It might steal passwords. It may download a virus, ransomware. I don't know if there's been some hospitals that have had issues with ransomware. That's another form of malware. So I got a few examples here. So the first one here is an email that purports to be from PayPal. And I think the clicker here works. Maybe not on the TV. So at the top, there's a red arrow. So it says it's from PayPal. So if you get this email, it's going to say, we're from PayPal. There's an issue with your account. The first thing that you should look for when you get these kind of an email is to determine whether it's real or not, is look at the email address. If you see it says info ACC mailing at TELUS, if that was a real PayPal email, it would say paypal.com or something like that. It wouldn't be telus.net and this other stuff. So that should be your first clue that this is not a legit email. And then the second one is there's usually either misspellings or grammatical errors or just something that doesn't quite sound like a professional email. So if you look at the bottom on this one, it says, click on the button to log in and to confirm your information. That's just kind of oddly worded, like not something that PayPal would actually send you. So those two things are big clues that this is not a real email. This is another one. It says it's from Apple. And again, you can see the sender's name at the top there. It says Apple, but the email address that it actually came from is Apple ID customer 28 at VStar something. So if you were to get this email, the first thing I would do is check the email address. Does it look like a legit email? Does it come from Apple or is it coming from VStar paid whatever this is? And then, yeah, again, down here it says, for the security of your account, we advise not to notify your account password to anyone. Again, that's kind of oddly worded, not something that Apple would send you as a professional email. So again, that's kind of the clue on that one. This is one that was sent to me last month, and it's from Amazon. So if you see at the top there, just like the other ones, it's got some weird email address that's just numbers and letters, not from Amazon itself. And then, again, if you don't update your information within 24 hours, your account are on hold for security purposes. Again, just not quite worded right, so that should stand out as kind of odd. And then this one is an example of malware. So again, same clues as the other one where you've got this, it says Apple support, but the email address it's coming from is not Apple. It's ground get Runica, whatever that is. So that should be your first clue that this is not a legitimate email. And then if you see at the bottom, there's a PDF file. So this would be an example of malware where if you were to click on that, it would probably download a virus or ransomware or some sort of keystroke logging software, which would all be bad. So definitely don't click on any attachments. And also, I don't know about anybody else, but I've never had Apple have me download anything from an email. So that's kind of odd. So what should you do if you do get one of these emails? Don't click the link and don't open the attachment. So the way this works, so the first email where it said click here to verify your account, if you were to click that link, it would take you to a fake PayPal website. You would then log in with your real PayPal information, and basically they would just steal your information. And then they would go to your PayPal account and steal whatever's in there or whatever they were going to do with it, but they would have your password at that point. So if you're still not sure, the best thing to do is go to the legitimate website and just sign in. So if you have a PayPal account, you get one of these emails and you're not sure if it's legit or not, just go to PayPal, log in, and there'll be a message if there's some issue with your account. And if in doubt, you can always contact customer services, usually a phone number or an email or something. But the bottom line is don't click the link, don't download whatever the attachment is. So I wanted to include this. I don't know if anybody here reads the Speedway Town Talk or gets that. This was a really good article that they included about a change of address website. So basically what this article is saying is that someone has spoofed the U.S. Postal Service website where you can go to change your address. And what they're doing is, number one, stealing information, but they're charging you $80 if you go through this website and it doesn't do anything. So I wanted to point this out as just a resource that things like the Speedway Town Talk, they have some good information in there that could be helpful. So the second one is, it's called voice phishing or vishing. So it's just like the emails or fake websites, but it's done by telephone. And this is the one that most of us have gotten, the spam, when your phone says spam call. A lot of these are the vishing. And most of them are going to claim to be a utility company, some entity with the U.S. government, debt collectors, you name it, they've tried it. So the number one thing to keep in mind with the vishing is not to trust the caller ID. So there are programs out there that are pretty easy to get where you can make your outgoing caller ID anything you want to. So I could make it look like I was calling from whoever's phone number I want to. And we had a guy recently, within the last couple months, he had his bank's customer service saved in his phone. So when they spoofed his bank's customer service number, it showed up on his phone as his bank. So he trusted, because it came up on his phone as his bank, that, okay, it must be my bank. He ended up getting scammed, unfortunately. So if that happens and you're in doubt, just hang up, call the real company. So if your bank calls you out of the blue saying that they need your social security number, just hang up, call your bank. They'll probably tell you it's not real. And then don't provide information over the phone on an unsolicited call. So what I mean is, if someone calls you and they're asking for a social security number, bank pins, whatever, don't give that. Sometimes your bank will ask for you that if you call them, but if someone calls you and you didn't initiate the call, don't provide any personal information, because it's just too hard these days to figure out if they're real or not. This is an example of a text message that I got. And if you see, it says it's related to COVID-19 stimulus. And what they want you to do is, there is a form there, or a website they want you to go to and basically put in your personal information. So we're 18 months into the pandemic at this point, and we've gotten these stimulus checks, and not once have I ever gotten a text message before they sent it. They just put it in your bank. So if you see something like this, that should be a red flag. And if you read through that, the grammar is really, really bad. We're pleased to inform you that your information was picked up for COVID from Joe Biden. So the grammar and the spelling are kind of red flags that this isn't something that you should do. And then finally, standard mail. We have had people get letters in the mail offering like advertising services. They say, hey, we'll give you $300 a week if you put our company's logo on your car. So what would happen is they would send you a check, and they would tell you to take part of that check and forward it to somebody else to pay for the wrap, but then the check bounces and you're out the money. So unfortunately, we've had a couple of those. We've also had one, this is kind of a gray area, I think. So it looked like it was a bill. It was to one of our local businesses, and it had their website address, and it had a $249 renewal fee. So if you just looked at it, it looks like a bill for a website domain registry. But when you looked at the back of it in the small print, it said this is an ad, it's not a bill. So it's kind of gray, because it says it's not a bill and it's just an advertisement, but they make it look so much like a bill that a lot of companies, they're busy and they just paid it. So we have had a couple examples of some standard mail, things you just get in the mail that have turned out to be scams. So again, if it looks like a bill and it's not something you normally get, read it really well. All right, so the next part, we're going to go over some of the most common scams that we've been seeing over the years. So for about 2 years, I had the majority of the fraud cases were assigned to me. So these are all scams that we've had multiple times in Speedway that we've investigated. And like I said at the beginning, there are so many more that we just don't have enough time to cover them. So these are going to be just kind of the main ones that we've been seeing. So the first one, they've kind of nicknamed the Grandparent Scam because it tends to target older people. And the scammer will call and claim to be a lawyer, bail bondsman, debt collector, whatever the case may be. They claim that the person's grandchild's in some sort of legal trouble and they needed you to help them out. They'll say, so basically they'll say, the judge has agreed to drop the case if you just send us $5,000 to cover the fines, or send us $5,000 to bail, John out of jail, whatever the case may be. So they'll ask you to send cash or gift cards or whatever the case may be. They'll tell the victim, don't contact your family members because we certainly don't want to embarrass him that he got arrested, whatever. And they'll want you to send the payment quickly. So one of our current detectives just had this in the last couple months. His grandma got called and she was told that he was in New Jersey for a wedding and he got arrested for drunk driving. And they needed her to send this money right away to get him out of jail. Fortunately, she didn't fall for it. She called him and he said, I'm not in New Jersey at all. I've never been to New Jersey. But that's kind of the angle that they took. And I can tell you that, again, this is one that I've had a couple people fall for this one. So a couple things to keep in mind if you are targeted with this is that legal matters are never solved that way. We're never going to call you and say, hey, send us a Nike gift card and we'll let your grandson out of jail. Again, don't trust the caller ID. That stuff can be spoofed. They're probably going to give you titles because that's what people expect. They're going to expect the lieutenant or whoever. They're going to give you fake badge numbers, fake case numbers. Whatever they can do to make this seem legitimate to you, they'll do. So don't believe any of that stuff just because it sounds official doesn't mean it is. Always call whoever it is or someone close to them. They're going to tell you that they don't want to embarrass them, but don't be concerned about embarrassing them. I'm sure they would rather you call and find that this is a scam before you send them $10,000 cash or something. Never send cash overnight, never send checks overnight. And we'll get into this a little more in a bit, but gift cards are a huge one. If anyone ever asks you for gift cards, that's a scam. And then again, if you're in doubt, get a contact number for them, give yourself a little bit of time, and then decide whether you want to call them back or not. Tech support scams, I've had a few of those. It could be like a pop-up on the internet, one of those phishing emails I told you about, and there'll be a phone number or a link. They're going to tell you, oh, your computer's not working right, or you've got a virus, but we can fix it. We just need to you just need to let us remote into your computer. So what remoting into the computer means is you're giving them access to your computer, and they're going to do all kinds of terrible things if you let them do that. They may ask you to send gift cards or money for service agreements, or if you do let them into your computer, they may ask for a ransom to get their computer unlocked. So just ask yourself, have you had any problems with your computer? If you get this pop-up, is this an issue you've had? If not, it's probably a scam, and if so, it's much safer to go to Best Buy's Geek Squad or some local company rather than trusting someone online. Online sales scams are pretty big too, especially with Facebook Marketplace. Craigslist is kind of slowing down, but it's still out there. Offer up, let go. The main angle with this scam is, so let's say I'm selling a couch for $1,000. I'll get contacted by somebody and they'll say, hey, we really want to buy that couch, but I'm not in town. I'm out of the country, whatever the case may be. I'm going to send you a check for $2,000. I want you to cash it and send the money, the rest of the $1,000 to my movers, my agents, whatever. So you cash the check, you send the money, the check bounces, and now you're out $1,000. So anytime someone tries to overpay you for something, that should be a red flag. And then I've had at least 2 cases where someone thought that they were buying a dog from like an out-of-state breeder, and there's pictures online. They see the dog, they'll pay $500 for the deposit or whatever the case may be, and then the next thing you know, like, all right, well, we're going to send the dog to you, but we just realized in order for him to fly, we've got to get these shots, and that's going to be another $200. So they've stolen the $500. Now they're going to try to get you for $200 more, and they'll keep going until you just shut them down. And like I said, they'll create fake websites. They'll have pictures of puppies, and then they'll start adding things in there that you didn't agree to. And the bottom line is the dog doesn't exist, and they're just trying to scam you. So some tips when you're buying online: don't mail deposits if you don't know who you're dealing with. It's always better to use a credit card or PayPal or something that's going to give you the opportunity to dispute charges. So if it does turn out to be a scam, you have an option. You can contact them and they can dispute that on your behalf. And always do your best to try to verify your sellers. So even if they're in Colorado, you can get on the Better Business Bureau site, see if they're a real company, see if there's complaints, Yelp reviews, Google searches. Reverse image lookups are really good. So let's say that you find a dog that you want to buy online. Save that picture, do a reverse image lookup, and see if it comes up in other websites. Because a lot of these people are just stealing pictures for this. So you might reverse look up that picture and see it's been in 4 or 5 different ads over the last 2 years.
How do you do that?
So if you go to Google, I think it's called Google Picture, but if you just Google reverse image lookup, so basically what you do is just save the picture that you want to search, and they'll let you upload it, and then they'll search the whole internet to see if that picture's been used anywhere else. Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's free. And that's really big when, like I said, when you're buying something online, because if you see that that same dog's been listed 5 times in the last 2 years, then this is not legit. If you're selling online, again, don't accept more than the asking price in exchange for their movers or their agents or whatever they tell you they need the extra money for. And if possible, don't mail anything until the funds have cleared, or again, use PayPal. We had some issues where our UPS store called us because they were getting calls from victims saying, hey, I sold this guy this thing online, and then I found out he's a scammer, and the package is supposed to be there today. So we had to go over there and kind of intercept their package for them. This is another one that's really been popular lately, especially the Social Security Administration scam. I just took a report on this in the last month or so. So the phone call will be, hey, we're with Social Security Administration and your Social Security number has been used to purchase a car or a house or whatever, or it's been found in some fraud investigation. So they then tell you, you need to send us payment for this to clear your case. Otherwise, you're going to be have a federal warrant. You're going to be a subject of a federal investigation. And they really try to threaten you. They'll say, well, we're going to come to your house if you don't send us this money. And what they want you to do is send them gift cards or something. So a couple things on this one. Again, if there's a warrant for your arrest, we're not going to call you. We don't call and tell you, hey, give us $500 and this warrant goes away. It doesn't work like that. Again, you can't pay off a warrant over the phone. Government agencies don't ask for gift card numbers. I had someone who was called by people claiming to be the U.S. Marshals, and they said they needed $1,000 in Nordstrom gift cards. And there's no reason why the U.S. Marshals would want Nordstrom gift cards. So that should be a big red flag. And again, don't trust titles. Don't trust badge numbers, case numbers. They really try to wow you with information like, oh, this has to be legit, right? He gave me his badge number and his title, but they just do that to seem more legitimate. Sweepstakes scams, we've had a couple of these. People will get calls saying, hey, you wanted this big prize. All you need to do is pay the taxes up front and we'll send it to you. So the person sends them $500 cash, $500 in gift cards, or whatever the case may be, to cover these taxes and fees. And then if they do that, they'll probably get a few more calls trying to get more money out of them until the person finally realizes it's a scam. But again, they'll say that they need it to cover taxes, shipping, whatever the case may be. This one's kind of an unfortunate one, the romance scam. I've had a couple of these. Usually it targets older people whose kids have moved out, husbands, wives maybe have passed on, they're single. They'll get on Plenty of Fish, Match, something like that. And they'll use fake pictures of themselves. They'll have fake stories about who they are. I've had people go so far as send the victims like flowers to kind of seem more legit. They'll tell them how much they love them. They want to spend their life with them. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to move in with you. And then the scam kicks in and there's some sudden emergency. The one I had was the guy who claimed he owned a business and some vital piece of equipment broke down and he needed cash. So he tried that and it didn't work. And when that didn't work, he went to extortion. So unfortunately, they'd had some racy text messages back and forth. Some photos had been sent. So when the guilt trip didn't work of, oh, I thought you loved me, then he went to, well, if you don't want me to share these with your friends on your Facebook friends list, you need to send me money. So that, like I said, that one's kind of an unfortunate one because it targets people who are kind of vulnerable and lonely. Yeah, don't send things that you might regret until you get to know somebody. So earlier, before we started this, we were talking about Nextdoor. And Nextdoor is another good website to get information on these types of scams. So we have seen this one a bunch lately. People are calling, claiming to be from AES, saying that they're with your electric company. And the one I heard was the guy claimed, we just took over your billing from IPL. There was some sort of glitch in the transfer, and your bill hasn't been paid in 6 months. And now if you don't give us $500, your account's going to be turned off. And I included a screenshot. This was actually, like I said, taken from Nextdoor, where someone here on the west side had this happen to them. They called IMPD's non-emergency and were told that they had gotten already 100 reports of the same thing. And so kind of interesting, 2 days ago, I got a call from, it said potential spam, which normally I don't answer my phone if I don't know who it is, but I knew I was going to be here tonight and I'm a team player, so I went ahead and answered it just to see what would happen. And it was a recording saying that if I didn't press 1, my power would be turned off within 30 to 45 minutes. So I pressed 1 and they transferred me to a foreign sounding guy named Chris. And Chris told me that I had to send them $500 or they would turn off my power. Eventually Chris hung up on me, which I didn't think was very good customer service, but it is what it is. I did go home later and my power was not turned off, so I guess Chris was okay after all. But yeah, that one's been going around a lot lately. So if you get that call, just be aware that one's been happening a lot. And again, the whole point of explaining these different scams is to kind of give you an idea of what they look like, because once you start to see them and understand them, they're easier to spot. This one's another that was taken from Nextdoor. And this was a report made to IMPD Northwest about utility people coming to the house and claiming that they need to do work. So we had 3 or 4 reports of this over the summer here in Speedway. And what it was were these guys, they were knocking on, again, older people, single people's doors, telling them that, hey, we're with Indianapolis Water. We're going to have to do some digging tomorrow to do some sampling on the water. Can you come out back so we can show you what we're going to do? And we've had it happen with tree companies too. Hey, we got to do some trimming. Can you come out back so we can show you? And what they want you to do is go out back with them so that their accomplice can then go in your house and find something to steal while you're outside. So again, we had a few attempts here in Speedway. They never got into anybody. Nobody actually fell for it here, but apparently it's happened to IMPD. One good thing to know about Speedway is that solicitors, with some exemptions like religious groups and political groups, solicitors are required to register with the town. So if you do have someone claiming to be, first of all, they said they were Indianapolis Water. Speedway has its own water company. So that kind of tipped one lady off. But if they are a legitimate solicitor, they should have a tag that says Town of Speedway, that they've come in and gotten their permit. If they don't, call us, because that's an ordinance violation and we'll come out and find out who they are. So again, if you do have someone come to your door and they're claiming to be a solicitor or the water company or whatever, just make sure that they're registered with the town. If not, give us a call. So again, there are a million scams out there. Really, the limit is just human imagination. There's new ones every day. But there are some themes that are kind of across the board on all of them. So if you can recognize these basic themes, you'll pretty much pick out any scam. So the first one is going to be the sense of urgency. A lot of times they want you to go to CVS right now with me on the phone and get these gift cards, or go to the postal store right now and get me a money order and overnight it, or overnight cash. So there's this sense of urgency to get you to do it right now, and I don't know if anyone's ever been to like a high pressure sales pitch, like a timeshare or something. They use the same tactics. They want you to kind of be in this emotional decision making process rather than a rational one. So basically what happens when we're put on the spot is we don't think rationally, we start thinking emotionally, and we don't make the best decisions. So that's why they put this sense of urgency to try to get you to make mistakes. They also don't want you to verify the story. Like I mentioned with the Grandparent Scam, they don't want you to call somebody and say, I just talked to him today, he's not in New Jersey, he's not in jail at all. And then finally, they want you, if they ask you to send a check, or if they're like doing an overpayment like I mentioned, it can take up to 4 days for a check to clear. So what they're hoping is they'll send you this check, you'll cash it, and then forward the money before the check bounces and you realize you got ripped off. So just be aware if there's any sense of urgency, like you have to do this now, you have to go to CVS and buy these gift cards, that's a red flag. Overpayment, again, I mentioned that with sales scams. Don't accept more than what you're owed. Legitimate businesses don't work that way. One of the scams that I didn't mention that we have had are employment scams where they'll say, hey, we want you to work in accounting, you get to work from home, we'll send you money, and then you forward it to other people. There really no businesses work that way, or they don't. One person told me that they fell for an employment scam where they were told, we're going to send you $2,000 to pay for your training materials. So cash the check and send the $2,000 or $1,500, whatever was left, to this company to pay for your training materials. And again, a legitimate business doesn't work that way. They're not going to send you a check and then have you pay somebody. So that should be a red flag for you. Gift cards. If you don't take anything else from my presentation at all, it should be gift cards are always a red flag for scam. Always, always, always. Again, businesses, they don't need iTunes gift cards. The U.S. Marshals don't need Nordstrom gift cards. So any time that they want you to go buy gift cards or take pictures of gift cards, that should immediately alert you. And I've heard that CVS and some of the other companies have gotten wise to this too. And if they see people coming in asking to buy large amounts of gift cards, they'll limit it. So they've kind of even caught on that that's a big sign of scam.
Can I just tell you?
Yeah, go ahead.
I work at Target, and their system is set up now so that you cannot buy over $500 worth at a time. And I had a gal come in, and I knew by the look on her face that she was getting scammed. She had five $100 Visa gift cards. And we're not allowed to accuse them of being scammed or anything. They just don't allow us to do that. So I asked her, I just tried to get her talking. I said, are these for a gift? And she said, no. And I said, okay, well, how do you plan to pay? And she said, I'm going to put it on a credit card, except I'm going to give you 1 penny. Well, that's so the credit card company wouldn't be flagged with the $500.
Right.
And I looked at her and I said, are you sure you want to do that? And she said, yeah. And I said, I mean, there was nothing I could do but do the transaction. And then I asked her again, are you sure you don't want gift receipts? And she was out of there as quick as could be. So yeah, the stores do what they can. Right. But it's limited.
Yes, but that kind of, like you said, shows the extent that even the retailers have caught on that anybody coming in buying $1,000 of gift cards probably getting scammed, and to tell the employees to watch out for that. And you kind of highlighted something that I've run into is a lot of times when people get scammed, they don't believe it. They just can't accept that they've been scammed. We had a lady, she sent a package, and you could tell by the outline it was cash. It was just a big stack of cash to this address at one of the apartment complexes. And the name on the package was a fake name, so the leasing office wouldn't give it to the person who tried to come collect it. So they had us come take it. We tracked the lady down, called her, and told her, hey, you got scammed. This person does not exist. We're going to send this back to you. And she would not take our word for it. She argued with us, said, no, please, they need that money. You need to get it to them. We said, you're getting scammed. We're telling you this person doesn't exist. And she was insistent that we get that money. So as you can attest, some people, they're set that they got to send that money. So, but yeah, gift cards, always a red flag. Appeal to emotion. So in the next block, we're going to talk about something called social engineering, which is basically kind of understanding how human beings work and how we think, and then using that against us. So what these scammers are going to do is they're going to appeal to fear. So they're going to try to tell you you're going to be arrested, you're going to get sued, you're going to be responsible for this money, whatever the case may be. They're going to try to scare you and hope that will trick you into sending them whatever they want. Compassion's another one. They're going to tell you, especially with the grandparent scam, that, little Johnny wanted us to call you specifically because he knew that you would help him and you would keep his secret. So they're going to try to kind of guilt you and use compassion to make you do what they want. Desperation. A lot of times, especially the last year and a half, a lot of people have been losing jobs. There's a lot of financial trouble out there. And that kind of makes people susceptible to things like sweepstakes scams and unemployment scams where, they're desperate for money and now here's this opportunity to make some real quick. So they kind of play on that desperation. And then love and companionship. Again, with the romance scams, they're really looking for older people whose kids are gone, who maybe their husband or wife has died and they're lonely, and that's who they're looking to target with these. And as always, if something's too good to be true, it probably is. Never send gift cards. I've mentioned that once, I think, probably a lot more than that because that one's huge. When in doubt, call someone for an outside opinion. Again, they want you to make decisions based on emotion rather than rational thinking. So call a friend, call family, call pastor at your church, call us, whatever you want to do. Find someone who's not involved in this to hear your story and tell you, does this make sense or not? And then again, don't fall for threats or intimidation. I had one lady one time tell me that she sent the people the money or the information or whatever it was because he was so intimidating. And I told her, you can just hang up the phone. You know, these people aren't going to come to your house. You can always call us and have us, we can do extra patrols at your house if you're really worried. But don't fall for threats and intimidation. It's, you know, like I said, hang up. So how do they get the information? So I've mentioned a few times now, they may call and say, hey, your grandson so-and-so. They may have their real name. They may know things about you, and they might know your age. They might know other personal information. So how are they getting this information? The reason that they do this is to make it more believable. So they feel like if they have this personal information about you, you're more likely to believe what they're telling you. So it's really valuable to them. So we're going to talk about how they're getting that and what we can do to keep them from getting that. So the first one is open source information, open source intelligence. The two big ones are data brokers. Has anyone ever heard of Spokio, That's Them, Family Tree, anything like that? Have you ever gone to it and checked it out? So some are better than others, but like That's Them, Family Tree Now, I've kind of messed around with those and they're really accurate. I've seen birthdays, telephone numbers, email addresses. It'll list your family members, your neighbors, hobbies. There's a lot of really accurate information, and those are free. All you got to do is go to those websites and you can get the same information. Which the reason that's problematic is, so let's say they list your family members and there's a bunch of people with a different last name than yours. Pretty good guess that might be mother's maiden name or something, which could be a security question if they're trying to get into one of your accounts. The credit bureaus may ask you, which one of these addresses have you never lived at? So if they have access to what addresses you may have lived at, they might be able to guess some of those answers. And then the government also puts some things out. Property records in a lot of counties are online. And then in Indiana, we have mycase.in.gov, and that shows arrest histories. It'll show tickets you've gotten. It'll show lawsuits, divorces, paternity stuff. So again, that's all free and that's available. The good thing with the data brokers like Spokio and That's Them is they are required by law to have an opt-out agreement, so you can find it on their page and ask for your information to be removed, and they will remove it. But the problem is the way they get this information is these other companies compile it and then they buy the information. So I took my information off a website and 5 months later it was back on there because they bought a new batch of information, it got put on the site. So you can have your information removed, but you do need to check back, every 6 months or a year or whatever, make sure it's not back on there, and if it is, remove it again. The MyCase stuff doesn't really go anywhere, unfortunately. So I mentioned this earlier, social engineering, it's kind of a fancy way of saying they understand human nature and they use that against us. So they might use that intimidation, the desperation, some of the things I mentioned just a moment ago against us. And then unfortunately, companies are kind of susceptible, like customer service. So I want to show this video, if I can get it to play. So to kind of set this up to save a little time, this guy is at a convention called DEF CON, and it's a hacker convention. And this lady here specializes in social engineering hacking. So basically, she's going to take his name and his phone number, and that's all the information she needs to call customer service and trick them into giving her information.
DEF CON is the biggest hacker convention of the year. It's a place where thousands of hackers come to hear talks, to demonstrate their newest hacks. It's actually a place that's so dangerous to be on the internet that they tell you to turn off the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth on your phone, and they tell you not to use the ATMs too, because those could be hacked as well. This is the DEF CON ballroom. It's sort of the main room where things are happening, and it's pretty wild. I think this is Car Hacking Village. This car is locked. Can you get me in?
I'll unlock it for you. Should be good.
Hacking is no longer like this fringe activity, and if you are at DEF CON, there's a good chance that you're here because you want to learn what could happen to you or your company.
Anyone here first time in the SCCTF? you do is you use the phone to extract information or data
What you'll
points
see
that
her
can be
do is she's
used
going to go
in
to
a
YouTube
later
and pull up
attack.
crying baby
Let's do it.
sounds.
Who are you gonna
Frazzle
call?
mom.
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider
Okay.
and see if I can get them to give me your email address.
How easy it is.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm gonna spoof from your number, so it's gonna look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. My husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today. So I'm so sorry, I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for uses information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
gmail.com?
Jessica gets my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Shh. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account. Okay, my
Jessica
name
uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
is 5127.
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry, so there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my
Thank you
password.
so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get her fed after this. All right, thank you.
Holy shit. So they just gave you.
So I like to play that video just to show that it can be kind of easy to trick people if you know what you're doing. I'll try to skip back. Okay, so social media is kind of a big source of leaks for a lot of people, mainly due to oversharing. You know, people post birthdays, weddings, health problems, family members will show up on there. There are some things that will use location services to see where you go frequently. That can be information to be used against you. They can see your friends and family, occupations, hobbies. So we tend to post a lot of things that could be used against us on social media. And let's see if I can get this one to play.
You know, we've been hearing a lot about cybersecurity lately, largely because of what happened to Sony. Companies and individuals are more concerned about the safety and privacy of their information than ever. President Obama has unveiled a number of new proposals this week to crack down on hackers, and he plans to address this in the
Didn't want to skip ahead on that one. Let's try again. So you say click off to the side? Just don't click. Just go forward. See if we can get back to that. Which website? Should be a couple more that way. There you go.
You know, we've been hearing a lot about cybersecurity lately, largely because of what happened to Sony. Companies and individuals are more concerned about the safety and privacy of their information than ever. President Obama has unveiled a number of new proposals this week to crack down on hackers, and he plans. This is how that went.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a Chihuahua Papillon,
And what's its name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And where'd you go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
Hempfield Area Senior High School.
Oh, when did you graduate?
In 2009.
Oh, great.
It's like my cat's name and then just like a random number.
Okay. Have you had this cat for a while?
Yeah, she's my childhood pet.
Aw. And what's her name?
Her name is Jolie.
Jolie.
Mm-hmm.
So like a password of yours would be Jolie and then a number.
Yeah.
Like number 1?
Like my birthday.
Oh, when is your birthday?
June 12th.
Oh, nice. And what year were you born?
95.
Oh, great. So Jolie 6 $12.95.
Yes.
Got it.
So you mean to give my pass?
Okay, so not that you're ever going to be interviewed on the street and ask these questions, but how many people use a pet's name and a birthday, husband or wife's name and a birthday, anniversary? A lot of people's passwords are something easy to remember like that. And they probably use the same password for Facebook that they use for their bank account. So when we make passwords that are relatively easy to guess, when we know how easy it is to find information on social media about us, that can be a problem. So the best thing you can do to protect yourself on social media is secure your account. So Facebook has an option where you can be public, which means I can Google search your name and see your account and everything you post. They can narrow it down to just acquaintances, which is friends of your friends, or you can narrow it down to just friends. So the only people that can see your information are your friends. Instagram, Twitter all have options the same way where your account's locked unless you're friends with that person. Which brings me to the next point. Don't accept friend requests from people you don't know, because if you do have your account locked down and then you accept some friend request from somebody, now they can see all your stuff. And then also accounts can be hacked. We've had situations where someone got a Facebook Messenger message from a friend and it was basically a scam. So they thought, well, it's from Beth, this is legit obviously, and they didn't know that her account had been hacked. So they just trusted because it was from their friend. So keep in mind that can be hacked. If you get some weird out of the blue message from a friend like, hey, got this great opportunity, get a hold of them some other way and find out if that's legit. And then unfortunately, data breaches are another information leak. There's really nothing you can do to prevent this. I got a letter in the mail from the state saying that my information had been hacked in, I think, a contact tracing for COVID thing. I know some hospitals recently got hacked. There's really not a lot you can do. There are some websites and some things that you can do to kind of get ahead of it though. This website, Have I Been Pwned? That's a P, not a W. You can put your email address in there and it'll tell you if that email address has ever been compromised. So it'll tell you, okay, it was stolen from Facebook on this day. So you can find out if your email address has ever been in one of these hacks. Check your credit regularly. The federal government requires the credit bureaus to give you a free credit report every year, so you can check and see if there are any accounts that you don't know of. Or there are some companies like Credit Karma, that's the one I use, and they'll let you see all your accounts. The way that they make money though is they'll send you offers from banks. So you might get some emails every now and then, but it's a free service otherwise to check your credit. And then you can also set up fraud alerts. For example, on my bank account, I set a spending limit, so let's say it's $10. If any transactions over $10, they send me a text message immediately, even if it's 4 in the morning. So if someone has stolen your credit card information, you lost your wallet or whatever, you can set it up so that if anybody uses that, they'll send you a text message letting you know it's been used, and then you can tell them whether that's legit right on the spot or not. So I always recommend that. You can set any limit you want to. You can do $1, you can do $100. And then there are some preemptive resources out there. StaySafeOnline.org is from the National Cybersecurity Alliance. They've got a lot of good information about ways to protect yourself online. Again, annualcreditreport.com is the free credit report I mentioned. And don't forget to check children's social security numbers. Sometimes a kid's social security number can be stolen and used to open accounts. So it's not one normally people would think to do, but you can check and make sure your kid's credit or social security numbers haven't been used. And then there's a guy named Michael Bazell. He's kind of the guru of all this stuff. He runs a website called Intel Techniques. He's got a book he wrote, but he posts a lot of free stuff on his website that's pretty good. All right, so finally, if you have been victimized, what now? What do you do? So obviously make a report with us, because a lot of times the bank's going to need that to start working on reversing that. One good website from the FTC, it's called identitytheft.gov. So if you look in the middle, I've got a red box. You go to this website, you press get started. It takes you to this screen and it lets you pick the different options. So if you want to report identity theft, or let's say somebody filed a tax return using your information, they have an option for that. If you find out that your information was in a data breach, there's an option for that. So what it does, and once you decide which one of those applies to your situation, it'll say, what did they use your information for? They stole my credit cards, they opened a loan, whatever the case may be. You pick there. They ask for specifics on how the information was misused. So then what they do is they do two things. They file a report, and then they also give you a personalized recovery plan based on what you've told them the situation is. So this is what the identity theft report that you would file with them looks like. And then again, they give you a personalized recovery plan. So it'll tell you, step one, call the companies where you know the fraud occurred. Ask them to close or freeze your accounts. They'll tell you or ask them to change logins, passwords, PINs. So they kind of walk you through step by step. Okay, now here's what you do to prevent anything worse coming from this. Another good one is the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, or the IC3. So this is another good one. And again, you start with file a complaint down there. And then they've got, if you want to submit a terrorism tip or missing exploited children, for this one, it would be the top one, Internet Crime Complaint. There's some information about what they're going to ask you and what they're going to do with the information, so you just hit accept. And then you fill in all the information, all your contact information, and then the next screen, they'll ask you for like a short synopsis of what happened. There's another fact sheet there. So what they do with this, I tell everybody, if you file a complaint with the FBI on this website, it's not like they're going to call you the next day and say, hey, you've made a report, let's get working on this. But they have their intelligence analysts comb through these, and they try to connect cases around the country. So you may report something, and it'll have certain identifiers that 10 other people across the country have reported, and they can start to kind of put those together and see if it's a workable case. I know that when I worked on the task force, we did have a couple cases that stemmed from those, and now they've got someone they can call and ask questions. And if we can solve the case, then you'll be contacted to let them know that they solved the case. So I always recommend that one because it's free and easy, and it may actually help out in the long run. Some more online resources if you've been victimized, idtheftcenter.org. That's a good one for identity theft stuff. Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, and then the Victims Assistance of America, again, is specifically for victims of identity theft. So those are some good websites you can check out if you have had this happen. This is also a good one I found a while back, again from the Federal Trade Commission. They run a website that basically updates the different scams that they run across. So every day, every week, whatever the case may be, if they learn about a new scam that's out there, they'll write up a brief synopsis about it so that you can kind of go through and see what's out there. There is an option on the right for getting email updates. So if you just want them to email you stuff, say, hey, we've been having a problem with this scam or that scam or whatever, they can do that. So I know we ran through that kind of quick, but I want to make sure there's time for questions. So what questions or discussions does anybody have? Go ahead.
I'd like a list of the websites that you referenced.
Okay.
Can I do that somehow?
Yes. Stick around. If you want, I can just email you this presentation.
Oh, okay.
I don't mind doing that.
I can just see me going down the rabbit hole though and spending a lot of time looking at something.
Yeah, so this one's really interesting if you're just interested in this kind of stuff because, I mean, this is a couple years old, but you can see it's, every couple weeks, every month, they're posting, new scams that people have come up with. And yeah, you can have them just emailed to you too, so it's kind of nice. But yeah, I'll get that to you. All right, well, that's it.
One other comment.
Yeah.
I have a very close friend who was scammed. Very intelligent woman, had just retired from working for the federal government. And it was interesting, after she told me the story, I went online and found somebody had written almost the script to what she had done. And they had essentially hypnotized her. They had her in a trance. And like I said, a smart woman. They kept her on the phone for 4 hours. And she traveled store to store to store, picking up gift cards, going out in the parking lot, giving them the number. It was all under the guise that they were, they're going to arrest people who are stealing internet information from people. And so she thought she was helping. Well, like I said, this went on for 4 hours, $13,000 later. She was in Target. And the woman walked by and said, are you being scammed? And she said, I don't think so. And she said, as soon as I said that, it's like I came out of it. And I said, wait a minute. And sure enough, she said, are they on the phone? And my friend said, yes. She said, hang up now. So for 4 hours, they had tagged her around, and she $13,000, she was out, no way to recover.
So, like I said, a lot of people feel embarrassed when they make these reports like, oh my gosh, how did I fall for that? It's so obvious now. But again, like I said, they use psychology against you. You can be a very smart person if they get you into that emotional state of like high pressure sale. I mean, that's exactly how sales pitches for like vacation companies, they use high pressure, and you just want to get out of the situation, so you'll do whatever it takes to make it stop. So yeah, very intelligent people get caught up in this stuff. We had a case I helped, came out of Pasco, Washington. And this lady had basically gotten scammed out of about $100,000. And what finally kicked it for her was some things they were telling her about this car she won. She was like, I could have bought 2 of those cars for $100,000. So, but that's what it took for her to finally realize, okay, this was a scam the whole time. So yeah, if you know people who are feeling embarrassed or guilty, there's really no reason to be, because like I said at the beginning, 56 million people in this country lost money last year. So. Yeah, that's kind of why we wanted to do this presentation, or why I wanted to do it, is because if you start to see what these scams look like and the things that they do and the techniques that they use, you can kind of start to see them as they're developing, and hopefully just preempt them rather than trying to play catch up later. So if we can prevent it from happening rather than trying to play catch up and investigate it, it's just so much easier. Yeah, anybody you know, like I said, don't tell them not to feel embarrassed. It happens to very intelligent people, and it's a psychology game that they play, really.
How do you turn this off? How do we turn this?
It's fine.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. It's a lot bigger in the community than what a lot of people think. Me, myself, was just a quick story, contacted by a detective out of Colorado, asked me if I was filing unemployment benefits out of Kentucky. And they had got my information the same way Joe's information was breached through contact tracing through the COVID deal. And it's kind of funny because he didn't Google my name, because obviously he'd have seen I was a police officer too. So I kind of laughed with him for a minute, and then he said, well, we know you're not scamming us because you don't live in Kentucky, and you're not unemployed. So real quick, Community Shredded Day, October 23rd, 2021, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., 1410 North Lyndhurst. Of course, emergency number 911. Non-emergency from a cell phone, 317-246-4300 is our non-emergency number. Go straight to our dispatch. Crime tip line, 317-246-5300. Without all yours help, everyone in the community's help, there's no way we can stop all the crime. We need the eyes, and let us go introduce ourselves to these people. I appreciate y'all being here, and we'll put the dates out soon for the next meeting. Have a good night.